is a good segue into our first topic, which was procurement. And I'd like to set the scene. I was mentioning to you before, I did a panel, I think, in Amsterdam, where we said, is buying market data? Well, you had a more elegant way of saying it. Is it the same as buying pens and pencils? I think on the panel we said, is it the same as buying toilet roll, which is slightly more entertaining. But the concept is procurement just procurement, whatever you're buying? Or do you need category expertise? So I think that's an opening question. I mean, set the scene on that.
Of course, you do need category expertise. Well, some people can, if you're working for a procurement company, you can switch categories. You can probably go from, you've got an idea. Procurement, there is SIPs, there is a qualification, SIPs qualification that you can switch categories. But it is good to have specialization, because if you are buying real estate, you know those vendors. You know the law around those vendors, because it's a lot of paralegal work. It's reading the contracts, know what to look out for in the contracts for those particular categories. Now, for market data, because it takes such a long time to get your head around what it is, it's a lot harder to go from, say, marketing procurement to market data, because the big difference with market data is you're not buying something. You're not buying it. You are buying a right to use.
License.
It's a license, like you would listen to Spotify. You can't buy music. You have to pay every time you use music. You listen to a song, it gets royalties. It is the same thing as it's intellectual property. And that's what.
Are you also involved in services that relate to market data, or even technology that maybe not personally, but is the Chain IQ group? Because I mean, your comment earlier on, market data, what is it? An observation I make is that market data as a phrase means different things to different people, and nobody's right and wrong. You almost have to, when I talk about it, any data that the market uses is my definition of market data. So I would include reference data and alternative data, all of that I encompass under the umbrella heading of market data. But other people, when they say market data, they just mean real-time pricing information from something like an exchange. And they're not wrong. So when you use that phrase, and when Chain IQ uses the phrase market data, what do you mean by that?
It's any information that a bank or financial institution needs to make a financial decision.
So that's like mine, isn't it, really? What isn't included in that?
It's not trading. Right. Trading is different. Market data is something that, I suppose, fixed cost in a way, where you know what the cost is. It's not dependent on volumes, etc. That is a different. I mean, you could call it market data, but it's a different speciality, really.
Because you're trading, you're paying fees for each transaction you're doing, or you're maybe paying for a service that enables you to transact. I think where the problem that everybody might have is, you can't really have one without the other. The only reason we have market data is because you want to do trading, and trading needs market data, but they are sort of separate, but they touch.
I think one of the difference possibly as well is that for trading, it includes the revenue, whereas market data is just a cost.
Yeah, because you earn something out of trading, although one could argue that the market data helps you to trade, but that's an interesting point. I'm slightly digressing. Market data so often, definitely in big banks or whatever, is a cost center. And that's slightly denigrating, in the sense it's not a profit center. You're less important if you're a cost center. If you're a profit center and you're earning money for the company, you're a hero. You're to be admired. If you're just a cost center, you're a thing we can cut.
Absolutely. And because people don't necessarily understand it, they know they need it. It's a huge cost. I mean, typically, it's the second biggest cost after salaries.
Yeah.
It's huge. But because people don't understand it, they think, okay, we don't know where it fits, and let's just put it away where we don't really need to see it, because it has large spends because there are a lot of it, but individually there aren't, you don't have there are hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the size of your company, but there aren't that many, even for large banks, contracts of more than $1 million, there aren't that many around. It's much more of the tens of thousands. That's where the volume is in lots and lots of different little contracts. So it's not as impressive as maybe big software contracts
Yeah.
or
No, I get. I mean, I hope maybe you know this, but I was just curious. One of the discussions, one of the thought processes I've had with people, especially those working in banks, the big bulge brackets or whatever, is where does market data sit? And it can sort of sit in procurement, it can sit in IT, it can sit in quote unquote the business. Sometimes it sits in ops. I mean, in your experience, the Chain IQ, UBS was where it all came from. Do you know where who is the interactive, not the person physically, but what department within UBS does Chain IQ report into? In the sense, where does market data report into?
to procurement.
So it's but you've seen this in other firms. It gets
Absolutely.
moved around sometimes.
Absolutely. Because market data isn't just procurement. Market data, there's procurement, there's the business analyst, there's the technical team, there's the inventory team. It's a little company in its own. And so because there's inventory, there's technical, I really liked it when we were all together. Where it was one market data team. We sat, remember where we used to sit? That was a Merrill Lynch. This was a long time ago under Merrill Lynch, where anything, okay, let's all sit in one room. And we were under the technical branch. And that worked well because we were able to we've got something happening. Let's talk to the tech team. Let's talk to the finance team. We're all there together reporting all in together. And that's why people don't really know where it sits. Is it under technical? Because we're all working for
Because it's multiple things, isn't it? So, I mean, procurement. Define procurement. I mean, I sort of know what it means, but it's the buying. Is it the negotiate? I mean, what is procurement?
Is the negotiating all the contracts. So once we know what the demand is, so we'll get the requirement. We tend to get that from either the business directly or from the business analyst. The business analysts are absolutely essential to us because they're the ones who find out all the demand. They do the demand management. And so the business say, right, we want something. Okay, can you just check that you really need it? What is the demand? What is it we want? So we work with the business analyst to figure out what it is.
So the business talks to the business analysts.
Yes.
And then the business analysts give you a brief.
Yes. Or we work together. We'll work together. The three parties will come together. We will, because I need to understand what they need. Absolutely. And then understand what the full who, how many, where, why, what you're going to do with it. Are you going to redistribute it? Is it just for in-house? Are you going to change it? Are you going to derive it? What is the full purpose for this? Because the contract has to be completely accurate for what the need is.
I see. And how much flexibility does that give you? And the reason I asked that question, because I would presume you need flexibility to be able to negotiate. When you're talking to, I mean, you could, I presume, go to the vendor, you say, this is what I want, how much is it, and where do I sign, and end of, I'll send you the check. I mean, that's at a very simplistic, I'm sure that's not how it goes.
Yes. So the flexibility, the problem with a lot of market data vendors is they are unique. It's a lot of single source. The data is only available from one place. Price negotiation is sometimes a bit tricky.
Very diplomatically put. They're all wonderful, these vendors. We love them.
Yes, we fun.
You have to see both sides. You have to see both. They're trying to charge as much as they possibly can, maximize their profits. That's the nature of the beast.
Of course. But because if they are monopolistic in their offering, then they can generally charge whatever they want. I mean, we know it's no secret that the likes of Bloomberg, you either take it or leave it. That's one cost. That's it. We don't budge. So you can't negotiate on the price for certain vendors. For others, which are more flexible, that's fantastic. That's great. But that for services, and I think we might touch a bit later. But the likes of ESG, when they've got a lot of different vendors offering the same thing, then you can have a bit more fun with that. But for the majority of market data, it's much harder. But where we do come in is in the terms and conditions. That is where the majority of the market data procurement, that's where we add our value, is in checking the terms and conditions, because sometimes they are valuable.
But don't the people selling you this? I mean, again, terminology. When I use the word vendor, I mean anybody selling you something in the English meaning of the word vendor. Whereas in the market data industry, vendors often means a Bloomberg, Refinitiv, now Elsevier, or as an aggregating data vendor. But if I'm talking about anybody selling you stuff, surely they come to you and say, "Here's our terms and conditions. Take it or they are not negotiable," or do they? I mean,
Majority of the time, they are negotiable. Yes, Bloomberg, no. That's fair enough, but we know that. But for everything else, it is. Because ultimately, they still want to sell their data. And even if you say, okay, your price, we've negotiated the price according to the number of users, the location, according to the use case, fine, that's your price. We think it's too high, too low. We can still do a little something, but it's all about the terms. Is what is it we're allowed to do with the data? So if you're saying that we're paying this huge price just for 3 people who sit by the printing machine in room 3, that's not going to work. We need more flexibility in terms of the use case. Are we allowed? And can we? Everything relies on the terms and conditions, and if they're not read, we can end up paying a huge amount if there's a problem. So one of the biggest thing to look out for in a market data contract is liability and indemnity.
what does
So
that mean?
is the person who's selling you the data, are they allowed to sell that data to you? Is
Wow.
it theirs to sell?
Okay.
Because if you sell me data
Yeah.
and Bloomberg come along and say, wait a minute, Caroline, you're using my data, you need to pay me. And I went, no, David sold me that data. I bought it from him. And they go, no, but that's not his to sell. You are using our data. You owe us because I'm using their data.
In that scenario, and we're using Bloomberg. I mean, it could be anybody.
Well, it could be any, and
Big
even with a
vendor
market data.
comes to you and says, "You've got my data via little vendor, and you should." Big vendor can still, I suppose, sue you. Can still say, "Chain IQ, I'm going to send you an invoice, and you've got to pay it." With the indemnity, does that mean you can then sue the little vendor and say, "Big vendors come along and told me I have to pay them,
Yes.
and you promised that it was yours, and you're in breach. Therefore, I'm gonna make you pay for that." Is that how it works?
Yeah. Yeah. Often it's sometimes the other way around, where it's a big vendor selling data and the little vendor's going, wait a minute, that's mine. Come and
Yeah, it's not just the big. Yeah,